it's time to look at the top two finishers in our gravel category for 2020's Bike of the Year, that being Cannondale's Topstone Carbon Ultegra and GT's Carbon Grade Pro. Each year for Bike of the Year we test around 30 bikes. Bikes start arriving with us right as early as October of last year. We've ridden throughout the winter, that's hundreds of hours, thousands of miles, in all weathers, all terrains, just to bring you these results. Just like every other genre in this year's Bike of the Year, gravel has been really hotly contested. We've had some great bikes in and on test for this one, from the likes of Canyon, Giant, Chinelli, Cervelo, and of course the top two here, Cannondale and GT. Just like any BikeRadar review, we'll take you through what the genre means to us first, and then we'll take you through the specs of these bikes, what you get for your money, how they ride, and we just find out which one comes out on top. If you have any questions for me or the team, please use the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for lots more independent reviews from BikeRadar. So the gravel bike, it's the newest genre that we test here at BikeRadar, and it's probably the hardest to define. Gravel bikes can mean so many different things to different people. A lot of it can just depend on the geography of where you live. So do you want a bike that can handle itself on the road as well as off-road, or do you go down the super fat tyre, almost like monster cross kind of thing, you know, with a 650B wheel and a big 2-inch plus tyre, you know, effectively riding a mountain bike with drop bars. So there's really no right or wrong here. It's just a case of deciding what you really want from this style of bike. Okay, so let's quickly just address the elephant in the room. There are going to be some people making comments that, hang on, this is the CSG group, you know, these are effectively the same company, you know, Cannondale and GT. Not exactly true. You know, their offices are based on opposite sides of the states, and it's not unheard of in the bike industry to see this a lot. Take the Pond Group, for instance. Cervelo, Santa Cruz, Focus, all underneath the same financing, but you wouldn't say they were the same brand. They're so different. Both Cannondale and GT have completely separate design teams. They have completely separate product managers. You know, these bikes are made completely independent of each other. It just goes to show that CSG have two pretty exciting brands. Now GT, with their original grade, they were one of the first of the big brands to actually bring effectively a gravel bike to market. In fact, back in 2015, we gave this, in our Bike of the Year, the best debut bike, just because it was just something new, something out there that just impressed us and we really enjoyed riding. Since 2015, lots of things have moved on. The geometry is slightly tweaked, whereas the previous grade was very, very relaxed in its ride position. They've decided that the way that the gravel market's grown, and with the lots and lots of events going out there now, the bike's going to be a little bit more aggressive. Still retain those original key characters. It's a lightweight frame, it's got lots and lots of compliance in it, but it's just become a bit more performance orientated rather than the kind of leisure thing where it came from. Our 58cm XL test bike, 612mm stack and a 400mm reach. That's really, really square in the middle of kind of sporty bike country. So another thing GT have introduced with the new grade is increased tyre clearance. The gravel market has moved on, there is a need for bigger tyres, and also with this new GT you've got dual wheel size capability. So in a 700C you can get a plenty big enough 42C on there. That will see you through most off-road endeavours. Should you want to go bigger, you can switch down to a 650 wheel and go up to a massive 47C. Now GT have one more trick up their sleeve. They've introduced a flip chip in the fork where you can actually change the position of the front axle. What GT have actually done here is they put it on a horizontal plane, and that's just to change the fork offset. Their reason being that you can have a nice short offset at 40mm or extend it up to 55. Now the reason for this is once the bike's been loaded up with heavy bike packing bags, etc., they wanted to enable the steering just to feel just as quick as it does on an unladen bike. It's a really neat idea. It's one of those things that just gives you a thing of personal preference. You know, do you like fast steering or do you like a slower, more stable feel? You can get both of them out of this one frame set. It's a really nice, neat little trick, and it doesn't really have any weight penalty on the bike. This is still a really light frame for a gravel bike. The test bike that we've got, you know, this frame is 980 grams. That's pretty light in road bike terms, damn light for gravel. So moving on to Cannondale's Topstone. This is another innovative Cannondale frame. It's very, very different to anything we've seen from them before. This is a very, very sport-orientated bike. It's quite a sportive style ride position. This is very much a bike aimed at the kind of racing end of gravel. Like the Grade, the Topstone offers dual wheel size capability too. On 700C, it's got clearance for 40C tyres, slightly smaller than the GTs, but when you move down to 650B, it's a similar 47C clearance. So that gives you plenty of range just to pick and choose the type of tyres you want for whatever kind of off-road road riding you want to do. So the Topstone frame is a little bit heavier than the GT Grades, and at 1100 grams, it's still pretty light for a bike in this genre. So the reason for this small increase in frame weight is one of the key features of the Topstone, and that's the rear end of this bike. It's got what they've called kingpin suspension. It's actually got a pivot at the joint between the seat stays and the seat tube, but there are no linkages, there's no shock unit, nothing else going on there. It purely relies on the flex in the carbon throughout that rear end just to rotate around the pivot. With the kingpin system, Cannondale claim that you can get as much as 30mm of travel at the saddle in relation to the rear axle. That's really, really impressive stuff, especially as there's no shock unit in place here. This is purely relying on the flex in carbon to do it. Now, that 30mm is actually a compounding of two different measures. The first measure is actually at the rear axle, which is all relying on movement in those stays. But that only accounts for about 20% of the overall movement. That's just about 7mm of rear axle travel. Interestingly, most of that movement is all coming from the seat post. Now, if you look at the seat post, it's kind of traditional and round at the pivot point, but below then it flattens and gets ever thinner before evening out at the bottom bracket. That means that the whole seat tube can act a bit like a leaf spring. It flexes an incredible amount fore and aft. In fact, it's over 20mm. When it all comes together, the back end of this bike just feels insanely comfortable, even over the most broken of surfaces. Now, GT with the carbon Grade have actually achieved something very, very similar to what Cannondale have done, but there's no complex pivot going on here. The seat stays on this bike don't actually join the seat tube at all. The seat tube is pretty much independent of that back end. The other thing that they've done with the seat stays is, and when you look at them, you see how microscopically thin they are in comparison to a normal carbon thing. Good reason for this, they're actually fiberglass. An interesting thing, so you've got this flex coming in the seat stays, almost kind of like a fishing rod. There's an incredible amount of movement that goes on there. They seem to have, the fact that they've achieved this just by using a material never often found in bikes is really clever outside the box thinking. So they can achieve a similar amount of travel at the back end to the Topstone, but there's no complexities here. It's just all about material manipulation and just doing things simpler, which again means this frame is really nice and light. Now, both the Topstone and the Grade come with what has fast been called adventure gearing, as it were. That means you get a subcompact front end, so it's a 4630 chain set, mated to a nice broad cassette on the back in 1134. Gives you a really nice off-road range of gearing, super low gears on that. But there is one significant difference between the two Ultegra systems. Cannondale, they've gone all mechanical and they're using their own SI chain set. GT have actually managed to squeeze in Ultegra Di2 on this bike. And it's not just your standard Di2 either. At the back end, they've actually used the Di2 RX mech, so that mech's fitted with a clutch, means you don't get much chain slap going on when you're riding off-road. Really nice, composed, controlled drivetrain. Didn't really suffer any chain drops, shifting remained consistent. So while GT might edge it in the drivetrain front, Cannondale certainly have the edge when it comes to wheels. And that's remembering both these bikes are exactly the same price. But Cannondale, they have managed to squeeze in their own carbon hoops. This time it's the Hologram 22. Now the 22 is an interesting wheel, only 22mm deep, but super, super wide, perfectly designed for the bigger volume tyres that you'll get with a gravel bike. And here it's running 37C WTB Riddlers. Whereas with the GT, you do get aluminium rims, but they are good. They're very, very good indeed. It's WTB's KOM rim. Again, it's a nice broad, wide profile, and it runs exactly the same 37C WTB Riddler tyres. So these bikes are really, really well matched in all the conditions we rode them in. As for the remaining components, they're kind of similar things going on here. Both have aluminium stems and aluminium bars. Both come with carbon seat posts, and both of those seat posts are topped off with really nice quality fabric saddles. So again, same price bike, equipment levels to match. This is a really, really tight contest. In fact, just because the specs are so close and everything about them is so close, well, you do find there is a marked difference in the way both ride. The Topstone feels so much more like a road bike than the Grade. It's a fantastic bike for just going quickly getting down in the drops and just racing hard. What they've made here is a gravel race bike. It has really confident handling. It feels quite assured, but it is all about just going very, very quickly. But you move on to the GT, and it's just a bit more of a playful bike. It's a really nice, easy bike just to flick and throw through corners, and taking it down some traditional wooded British single track, this bike just felt completely at home. It has almost an old school kind of hardtail mountain bike feel about it. It's a bike that enjoys being thrown into corners, hopped off jumps. It's kind of a bizarrely fun bike to ride. You know, the action on the back end is wonderfully forgiving. The Topstone, in comparison, yeah, that back end works amazingly well on like fast, heavy kind of washboard surfaces, though it's slightly out of kilter with the front end. The front end almost feels kind of race bike firm, race bike stiff. So you get this ever so slight discrepancy between the two. So in conclusion, both bikes have some serious merits. Both of these bikes are a penny shy of £3.5 grand. Specs are broadly similar. Cannondale edges it with carbon wheels. GT edges it on the drivetrain by moving to Di2. Take the Topstone. This is a great bike for dirt roads and things really, really fast, really confident. On the road, it's no slouch either. It's a really good all-rounder. If you were looking to kind of declutter your life, it's one of those bikes that could be considered a kind of do-it-all thing. But when it comes to the pure off-road stuff, the GT just works so beautifully well. It's fast off-road, it's nimble, it's just supremely agile. It really puts a smile on your face. It just kind of takes you back to those days of when you were being a kid and you're just messing around in the woods. There's a kind of chaotic chaos to the way it rides. You actively look for things to jump off. You're looking for diversions on every single turn. On the Topstone, what you're actually looking for is to get from point A to point B as fast as possible. On the grade, you want to stop at the fun bits and keep looping around and doing them again. The fun factor on this bike is awesome, and that's why it's our gravel bike of the year. So the gravel genre is a really difficult one to define. Let us know what your gravel bike winner would be in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and please click on the bell icon. That way you'll be notified every time we upload a new video to BikeRadar.